Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
You know how they say karma always comes back around? Well, let me tell you a story about how it did for me, and boy was it satisfying. It all started back in 2004 when I finished high school. Mobile phones were just becoming a thing in my country and my parents bought me my first one. A clunky second-hand Nokia. I was grateful, but I made a promise to myself that one day I'll buy a new phone with my own money. Fast forward to college, I had a long commute every day, 2 hours each way, but I was used to working hard. In high school, I'd won a bunch of academic awards at the district level. During my first year of college, they were finally getting distributed. One of them, from a big national bank, gave me enough money to buy that new phone I've been dreaming of. I was so excited when I went to the store. I picked out a shiny Sony Ericsson K300i and even splurged on a premium SIM card. Little did I know that decision would set off a chain of events I never could have imagined. At first, everything was great. I loved my new phone, but on the third day, things got weird. I started getting calls for someone named Bitsa from all these banks and financial places. Turns out the number used to belong to this guy and he'd left quite a mess behind. Now, I really wanted to keep this premium number, so I started plugging all these wrong numbers. The problem was, back then you had to plug numbers on each new phone you got. So every time I upgraded, I had to start all over again. I even kept a list of numbers to plug. Life went on. I graduated in 2009 and got my first job. Things were looking up, but then in 2010 I got assigned to this new project at work. It had a reputation for being brutal, all because of this one project manager. Everyone called him Bits, and let me tell you, he was a piece of work. From day one, Bits made our lives hell. He'd flood our inboxes with urgent emails before we even got to the office. He was always changing deadlines, making us work late and on weekends. Nothing was ever good enough for him. Bits micromanaged everything. If something went well, he'd take all the credit. But if anything went wrong, watch out. He'd tear into us in front of everyone, pointing fingers and yelling. We were all terrified of messing up. And the meetings? Oh, the meetings. He'd schedule them during lunch or after hours, so we could never escape. Half the time they were pointless. It felt like he just wanted to show us who was boss. One day, after a particularly nasty meeting, I overheard some co-workers talking. "I can't take this anymore. Bits is driving me insane." "I know, did you see how he ripped into Sarah today? It wasn't even her fault." "I'm thinking of quitting, man. My health can't take this stress." "I hear you, but jobs are hard to come by these days. We're stuck." I felt for them. I was feeling the same way. Bits was ruining our lives, and there seemed to be nothing we could do about it. Things went on like this for a while. Then, in 2012, our company merged with a bigger one. Not much changed, except we got this new system called Microsoft Outlook and could see the whole company structure. That's when I learned Bit's full name. Let me tell you, it was like a lightning bolt hit me. His name was Bitsa. Now, Bitsa isn't the most uncommon name where I'm from, but something clicked in my head. You see, in my country, mobile numbers have a pattern based on where you're from. I knew the guy who had my number before me was from my area. Could it be the same person? I needed to know more, so I reached out to this old mentor of mine. He'd been coaching high school kids in our area for years. I asked him about Pizza, and what he told me confirmed everything. Pizza and Bits were the same person. I was floored. For almost 10 years, I've been getting calls for this Pizza guy. And now he was making my work life miserable too? It was too much. That's when I decided enough was enough. It was time for some payback. First thing I did, I unblocked all those numbers in my phone. I've been blocking about 150 of them over the years. Suddenly, instead of 5 or 6 calls a day, I was getting 15 to 18. But this time, I changed my strategy. Instead of just saying wrong number, I got helpful. Real helpful. The next time my phone rang, I answered sweetly. "Hello? Is this Pizza?" "Oh, I'm sorry. Pizza changed his number a while back, but I'll be happy to give you his new one so you can update your records." "That would be great, thank you." Of course. Oh, and just in case he tries to dodge you again, here is his manager's number too. I did this for every single call. And let me tell you, the fallout was glorious. Turns out these people had been trying to track Pizza down for years. Banks had sold out his debts to collection agency, and boy did he have debts. Over the next few weeks, I pieced together the whole story from the various callers. Pizza had been taking out loans in everyone's names. His wife, his parents, even his aunts and uncles. And he'd given them all the same number. My number. All told, he owed something like $200,000. That might not sound like much where you're from, but in our country, that's a fortune. He had almost 20 cases filed against him, but no one could find him. No wonder he acted like he was untouchable at work. About a month after I started giving out his number, I overheard a conversation at the office. Hey, did you hear about Bits? No, what happened? Apparently his manager's been getting all these calls about him. Something about unpaid debts and fraud. It's chaos. Wow, that's crazy. Any idea what's going to happen? No clue, but it doesn't look good for him. I tried to keep a straight face, but inside I was doing a happy dance. 2 weeks later, Pitts was gone. Just like that. The official story was that he decided to pursue other opportunities, but we all knew the truth. The office atmosphere changed overnight. People were smiling again, laughter returned to the break room, and it was like a dark cloud had lifted. A few days after Bitts left, I ran into his former assistant in the elevator. Assistant says, I can't believe how different things are now. I know, it's like we can breathe again. You want to know something funny? Remember all those impossible deadlines Bitts used to give us? How could I forget? Turns out, half the time, the actual deadlines were way later. He just moved them up to stress us out. Are you serious? Yep, the new manager showed me the real project timelines. We were killing ourselves for nothing. As the elevator doors opened, we shared a look of disbelief. In the weeks that followed, more stories came out about Bit's shady dealings. Apparently, he'd been skimming money from project budgets for years. No wonder he always insisted on handling the finances himself. One day, about a month after Bitts left, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. Hello? Is this the person who's been giving out my number? I froze for a second, then decided to play dumb. I'm sorry, who is this? Don't play games with me. I know it was you. You've ruined my life. Sir, I think you have the wrong number. I don't know who you are or what you're talking about. Listen here, you little... I hung up and blocked his number. My heart was racing, but I couldn't help smiling. He knew. He knew it was me, but he couldn't prove it. And now he was the one with a problem number. As for me, well, life got a whole lot better. Work became enjoyable again. We got a new project manager who actually treated us like human beings. Best of all, those pesky debt collector calls finally stopped. Sometimes I think about Bitts, wondering where he ended up. Part of me feels a little guilty for what I did, but then I remember all the lives he ruined, all the stress he caused, and I realize he brought it all on himself. You know what they say, karma always comes back around. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to be the one who gives it a little push. I'm a guy who's been through a lot. It all started about 5 years ago when I was diagnosed with bone cancer in my left leg. The doctors tried everything they could to save it, but in the end, amputation was the only option. Losing my leg was tough, but I am not one to give up easily. With the support of my amazing wife, I threw myself into physical therapy and learning to use a prosthetic leg. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to get back to living a normal life. Fast forward to last week, I had my regular checkup at the hospital to make sure the cancer hasn't spread. These visits always make me a bit nervous, but my wife was there for me, holding my hand as we drove to the hospital. When we got there, I saw an empty disabled parking spot near the entrance. I have a disabled parking placard because of my prosthetic leg, so I pulled in and started to get out of the car. And that's when all hell broke loose. This woman came charging over to us. I'll call her Karen because, well, that's exactly what she was. Hey, you can't park there. That spot is for disabled people. I am disabled. I have a placard right here. I pointed to the placard hanging from my rearview mirror, but Karen wasn't having any of it. That's obviously fake. You don't look disabled to me. I need that spot. I'm feeling really sick and I deserve it more than you. My wife tried to intervene, but Karen just talked over her. "Ma'am, please calm down. My husband has every right to park here." "Shut up, I wasn't talking to you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've dealt with some ignorant people before, but this was a whole new level. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I have a prosthetic leg, which is why I have the placard." "Liar, you're walking just fine." Before I could respond, Karen did something I never expected. She started pushing my car with her bare hands. She was grunting and straining, trying to force my car out of the spot. It was almost comical, watching her face turn redder and redder as she realized she couldn't budge a 2-ton vehicle. "Lady, stop. You're going to hurt yourself." "I'll stop when you move your car, you fraud." I was getting really frustrated at this point. I didn't want to, but I felt like I had no choice. I rolled up my pant leg to show her my prosthetic. "See, I'm not lying. Now please, leave us alone." Karen's eyes went wide when she saw my leg. For a moment I thought she was going to apologize. Instead, she whipped out her phone and started dialing. "I am calling the police. You just exposed yourself in public, you pervert." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife was in shock beside me. "Are you insane? He was just proving he has a prosthetic leg." Karen ignored her and started yelling into her phone about a man exposing himself in the hospital parking lot. My wife and I just stood there dumbfounded. We couldn't leave because we had my appointment, but we also didn't want to deal with this crazy woman anymore. About 5 minutes later, 2 police officers showed up. Karen immediately started screeching at them. "Officers, this man flashed me. He exposed his leg in public." The cops looked confused, looking between Karen and me. "Sir, can you explain what happened here?" I sighed and rolled up my pant leg again. "I have a prosthetic leg. This woman was harassing us for parking in a disabled spot, so I showed her why I had the right to park here." "See, he's doing it again. Arrest him." "Ma'am, calm down. Showing a prosthetic limb isn't indecent exposure." But he's faking it. It's not real." I couldn't believe what happened next. Karen lunged at me and grabbed my prosthetic leg. She started pulling on it with all her might, screaming that she was going to prove that I was a liar. The pain was intense. Even though the leg itself is prosthetic, the attachment point is very sensitive. Acting on instinct, I used my good leg to push her away. I didn't mean to push her so hard, but she went flying back and landed on her butt. The cops immediately jumped into action, grabbing Karen and putting her in handcuffs while she thrashed around like a wild animal. "Sir, are you alright?" "Yeah, I think so. Just a bit shaken up." "Do you want to press charges?" "We've got assault and battery, harassment and attempted property damage at the very least." I looked at Karen, still screaming and struggling against the cops. Part of me felt sorry for her. Clearly something wasn't right in her head. But then I thought about all the other disabled people she might harass in the future if she didn't face consequences for her actions. Yes, I want to press charges. As the cops licked Karen away, she was still yelling about how I was a fraud and how she was the real victim. My wife hugged me tight and we both let out a shaky laugh of relief. Well, that's one way to make a hospital visit more exciting. Yeah, let's hope the actual appointment is less eventful. We watched as they put Karen in the back of the police car. Just before they closed the door, she made eye contact with me. For a split second, I saw something in her eyes. Not anger or hatred, but fear and confusion. It made me wonder what had happened in her life to make her so bitter and suspicious of others. As we walked into the hospital, my wife squeezed my hand. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. Just processing, I guess. You know, I'm proud of you. You handled that very well." Anyways, for now, I had my own health to focus on. I sat down on the examination table ready to face whatever came next. After all, that's what life is all about. Taking each challenge as it comes and doing your best to stay standing, even if you're down a leg. My wife and I have been saving for years, pinching pennies and working overtime to make our dream of home ownership a reality. We're both teachers, so it wasn't easy, but we finally managed to scrape together enough for a down payment on a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. The house wasn't perfect, but it had potential. The previous owner had built a nice shed in the backyard, which I thought would be great for storing our gardening tools and my wife's art supplies. We closed on February 9th, and for a while everything seemed perfect. We were so excited to start our new life in our very own home. But then 3 days ago, I got a call that changed everything. Hello? Hey, it's Ricky, the guy who sold you the house on Maple Street. Oh, hi, Ricky. Is everything okay? Well, not exactly. I forgot to mention something important. I still owe money on the shed in the backyard. What do you mean? We bought the house and everything on the property. Yeah, but the shed, I financed it separately. I still owe about $3,000 on it. I don't understand. Why are you telling me this now? Look, I'm in a bit of a financial bind. I was hoping you could help me out. If I don't pay, they might repossess the shed. Repossess a shed? But it's on our property now. That's why I'm calling you. Maybe you can work something out? I was stunned. I told them I'd have to think about it and hung up. I immediately called the title company hoping they could shed some light on the situation. They told me they couldn't help and that I needed to get an attorney. Great. I managed to secure an attorney, but the earliest appointment I could get was on August 7th. Meanwhile, Ricky the seller kept calling me every single day. On the third day, I finally picked up again. Ricky, I've told you, I'm consulting with an attorney about this. Come on, man. Can we just handle this between us? I really need that money. I'm sorry, but I can't just hand over $3,000 for something I've already paid for. The shed was included in the sale. But I told you, I still owe on it. And you should have disclosed that before the sale. It is not my problem now. Don't be like that. I thought we were cool. We were. Until you tried to extort money from me for something I already own. I hung up fuming. I couldn't believe the audacity of this guy. I decided to do some digging of my own while waiting for my appointment with the attorney. I pulled out all the paperwork from the sale and started going through it with a fine-toothed comb. And that's when I found it. In a stack of documents, there was a statement signed by Ricky, clearly stating that there were no liens or leases on the property. The shed was even included in the survey that was done before closing. I felt relieved that I had proof, and angry that this guy thought he could pull one over on us. The next day, like clockwork, Ricky called again. Hey, have you thought about our little problem? Yes, Ricky, I have, and I found something interesting in the sale documents. Oh yeah? What's that? You signed a statement saying there were no liens or leases on the property. The shed is clearly shown on a survey. So as far as I'm concerned, we own the shed, free and clear. But I told you about the loan after the sale was complete. That's not how this works, Ricky. You can't sell something then come back later and say, oh, by the way, you need to pay extra for this part. But what am I supposed to do? I still owe that money. That's not my problem. You should have either paid off the shed before selling the house or disclosed the debt during the sale process. And you did neither. This isn't fair. I'll sue you. Go ahead. I have all the documentation showing that you sold us a property, including the shed, with no outstanding debts. But if you want to waste your money on lawyers, be my guest. The line was silent for a moment. Fine. Keep the stupid shed. But don't come crying to me when they come to repossess it. They can't repossess something that legally belongs to us now, Ricky. That's not how property law works. I hung up, my hands shaking with adrenaline. I couldn't believe I had stood up to him like that, but I knew I was in the right. Just to be safe, I called my attorney and moved our appointment up. I explained the situation and sent over all the documentation. He confirmed what I already knew. The shed was legally ours, and Ricky had no leg to stand on. A week later, I got a letter from Ricky's creditor demanding payment for the shed. I forwarded it to my attorney, who sent them a strongly worded response, including copies of the sale documents and survey. We never heard from them again. As for Ricky, he tried calling a few more times, but I blocked his number. Eventually, he sent a nasty email, calling us all sorts of names and threatening legal action. I simply forwarded it to my attorney and forgot about it. Months passed and we settled into our new home. We painted the bedrooms, planted a garden, and yes, we made good use of that shed. Every time I walked past it, I couldn't help but smile thinking about Ricky and his failed attempt at extortion. One Saturday, as I was pulling some tools out of the shed, I noticed a car slowly driving by. It was Ricky, looking miserable as he glared at the house. Our eyes met for a moment and I gave him a friendly wave. He sped off and I never saw him again.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.